Why are you moving to Linux? That's a question you should ask yourself. The reason why I brought up that intro was because, one, for you to come to Linux, there has to be a reason why you decided Linux is a place to be. Not all individuals, especially in the corporate environment, would want to actually come to Linux. So the best way to actually deal with Linux is to test it yourself. And I'm very sure as a new person in Linux, or as a new user in Linux, it would be very difficult of you to try to test it, especially if you're on a short notice, or if you have maybe 1 or 2, 3 things that you want to do. So you'll find that with Linux, it needs you to test out and be precise in what you do, and that's why I am here to help. So with me, my name is Timothy, and I'll be taking you through Linux 411. And with this, we should be able to at least take you through the basics of Linux and how we should be able to actually accomplish our goals and tasks by the end of it. So basically, I'll just do a small basic so that the next video we are going to actually deal with now basically why or how to install Linux. So basically, the Linux is part of what you call a Unix. Is based on Unix operating system that was developed in 1991. It's actually a free open source software, and you'll find them coming with two things: either command line interface, especially when you're dealing with the servers, or graphical user interface. With the command line interface, this is when you would want to actually minimize the utilities that are being used on your Linux system. But when it comes to graphical user interface, it's kind of now what we actually have, as you can see over here, where we're able to interact as compared to graphical user interface. So you find that there are different types of the command line. As you can see there, there's the simple shell, there's born again shell, there's corn shell, there's C shell, and there's secure shell. These are just some of the basic things that will interact with as we continue. And then when you're dealing with this, you'll find that we also have text editors that will be embedded to some of these command line interfaces, such as VI or Vim, there's Emac, gedit, there's Kwrite, Pico, and Nano. So the most probably ones that you'll actually interact with is Vim or VI, Nano. Those are the most common, and most of your systems come with that pre-installed. So based on that, you'll actually find yourself going through that. Now this is where now the next thing will be more contentious, because I find a lot of people arguing over the internet, and if you look at even YouTube itself, so many people are arguing or giving packs or giving standing innovations to operating system based on their experiences. Now, as a new user, I would advise you to pick your own environment that you feel, first of all, that you are comfortable with. And I'll tell you why that is the case, because one, you need to pick an environment that is user friendly, two, that has a very large community, meaning in case you're stuck, you can get answers by Google. And the only way to learn Linux is actually you just need to find yourself entering to the deep end, and there you go. Also use Google, and also make sure that you back up your stuff. Those are the key things that you'll need to do when you're using Linux. And once you've done that, you'll be able now to actually even challenge yourself and seek options out there, especially when it comes to the different distributions that are there. So you'll find that distributions basically, it's just Linux, but now how it has been bundled up. It has been packaged with other components that are installed, that is programs that are installed, management tools, and also additional software such as hypervisors that are installed to the Linux distribution, and it comes with different other perks in it. So you'll find that I will not really advise you on which, or I will not really be the kind of person who is going to argue that this is the best distro, this is not the best distro. I have my own experiences with all these distros that are out there. So my thing about it is I'll just come and advise on what you'll need to do when you're sampling. Now the first thing I'll talk about before I continue is this is our website, distrowatch.com. This is a website that is very important when it comes to learning and getting to know what are the new things when it comes to Linux operating systems. Apart from that, it will also tell you which distros are popular. As you can see here, MX Linux, it looks to be very popular as we speak. And let me just give you a hint, there are so many operating systems that are there beyond. As you can see, there's so many distros that are there. You'll notice that over here it's 274, but there are more than that worldwide. So you'll find that you have a lot to test and sample and see whether they actually fulfill your desires. And as a person coming from Windows, as a person coming from Mac, there are those operating systems that kind of make it easier for you to integrate to Linux. A good example would be, you'll find that Ubuntu favors people who come from Windows. There are also other operating systems that are there that kind of, especially when you tweak it well, that will allow you to also, especially on the desktop environment, that will allow you to integrate yourself and better understand, integrate yourself to that operating system. So you'll find that it's based on that, and you'll find that there are so many distros. Like for example, there's Ubuntu. Ubuntu has its own set of smaller players or other distros that come below Ubuntu, like for example Ubuntu Mate. And the reason why for me I like Ubuntu Mate is the fact that it's lightweight and can be used with very old systems or CPUs or computers. So these are lightweight operating systems similar to Ubuntu, as compared to Ubuntu, by the way. So you'll find that these are very lightweight operating systems as compared to their that is Ubuntu. There's Debian. There's also the likes of Elementary OS. As you look at Elementary OS, you'll notice that if you're migrating from Mac OS, you'll find that it looks a bit friendly. As you can see, even the icons and the likes, they kind of tried as much as possible to fit in so that it looks like Mac OS. So it's up to you to decide which version or which distro of Linux you would want to use. My idea about it is, first of all, understand what machine would you want to actually install that operating system, because you'll find that I would basically, if you're working with very like let's say for example i3 and below, that is i3 core, i2 core, dual core and the likes, you'll find that it's necessary for you to actually pick the one that is a bit lighter, Ubuntu and Ubuntu. If you have a very good laptop that is mostly 64-bit and also is like above i3, you can choose even Linux, Ubuntu over here. There are also others, and you'll find that there are so many out there. There is also Red Hat, there is Fedora. All those are good distros that you can actually begin with. But for my case, I'll actually start my basics in Linux using what you call Ubuntu, because they have a very large community. Once you understand how you're going to work on this, it's pretty easy now to shift to these other operating systems that are kind of a bit different, especially when it comes to commands. So you'll find that when it comes to that, Ubuntu and the Debian line, those operating systems that fall under the Debian category, you'll find that their commands are similar. When you move to Red Hat, they have also similar, but they're totally different when it comes to applying commands. And then there's also the likes of, let's see over here, Manjaro, which is also a different distro based on, it's based on Arch Linux. So you'll find that those are just several things that you'll need to understand. Now, once you've established what operating system, be it either one of these, you'll need to go to the download section and download the best or the latest OS that you deem is necessary. Always check on the LTS. LTS stands for long-term support, and if I was you, I would actually pick this 20.04, means it's stable as compared to the 21.04. So pick up the 20.04 and then you can actually download it. Similar to Ubuntu Mate, pick the one that has the long-term, the LTS, that is the long-term support, because if you don't pick that, it kind of is a testing ground for them, meaning in case you have any issues, you might find it very hard to actually get support. Like for example, over here, you'll just come over here and click on 64-bit PCs, and then you'll choose the 20.04.3 LTS. This is what I would actually recommend, and as you can see, its support goes all the way to 2023 as compared to this, which is actually fairly new, because this is actually fairly new, but you'll notice that they kind of keep on improving on it, and until they reach a point where they'll actually make it a long-term support software, I would actually ask you to stick to the LTS versions of that operating system. Apart from that, there are also others in case you're interested, such as Kali. Kali comes with tools that are pre-installed, which are what we call penetration testing tools. Apart from that, there's also Backbox, which is based on Debian, does the same thing. So these two also, you can actually choose any of those two, and you'll be fine with whatever we'll be going through. So as we were saying, the first thing that you need to do is figure out how to install your disk on your machine. And normally, as I said, when you come in to install Linux, there are three methods. You can either install it using the ISO file you just downloaded from the preferred distribution or distro site. Then once you have it, you can either install it as a virtual machine, or you can install it on a physical computer, or you can actually install it on a cloud application or a cloud platform such as Amazon EC2. There is Microsoft as well. Google also have. Huawei also have all that. So you are going to install it based on where it suits. Now, by this, we also have a caveat with all these platforms. When you come to the cloud solutions, you'll find that they give you an option of having to install, or you can actually install your Linux distribution from whatever they have, whatever repo they have, or they kind of have their own repositories of these Linux images. So what you'll just need to do is just configure the space that you want to install your Linux, and then from there they'll actually give you options based on what they have. Now, with these other two options, you'll need to download that ISO image and use it. With this, in our case, we will be primarily installing Linux on a virtual machine, but there is also the other method where you'll be using what you call different forms of media to install it on your physical machine. The most popular method of actually doing this is using what you call a flash drive. The flash drive, you'll realize that you'll need to actually get to download a certain software by the name of Rufus from their website. Come download whatever you have. Then Once you've downloaded it, you'll have something similar. Once you have any flash drive, you should be able to see it over here. Then the next thing is select your ISO image. In my case, I'll be installing Ubuntu, which is lightweight, and as I said, it all depends with what you'd want. So there you go, I select Ubuntu. It should not give you any error once it's completed, because it means that maybe that image is broken. If you get an error with that, apart from that, make sure that the device flash drive that you've installed is actually visible. It should actually appear over here. Take note also, you should not actually, because I've been in a scenario where I was not really keen on what I had over here. So I was primarily, I had a let's say, for example, a hard disk connected to my computer at the same time as maybe I have also maybe a flash drive connected. So you'll find that there is an instance where you might actually find yourself having a very big, you need to actually understand what you've installed over here, or what devices are actually visible. So you have to be very keen. Select the one that you deem is the flash drive. Then once you've done that, click on start so that you can continue. So once you have that installed, the next thing is now you'll just need to connect your flash drive onto a machine that is ready for installation and turn it on. Make sure that your BIOS reads that once it boots, it's going to read from your flash drive, meaning you have to make sure that your bootable section, or where you actually configure your where the device is supposed to be booting, is supposed to be pointed to your flash drive, or the drive that you've actually put there. So in our next lesson, we'll now be going straight on and tackling the practicals. I think from now onwards, I'll not be as detailed, will be more of like fulfilling whatever is necessary when it comes to the different aspects of Linux. So I hope this has been informative, and I thank you for viewing.